Friend of the poor and the Lord and Master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the world. We take shelter of your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajachanarandana Yashodanandana Brajachanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajachanarandana Yashodanandana Brajachanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol Nitai Gaura Haribol Haribol Gaura Premanande Haribol Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astuttara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace Shila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya narang cheva narottamam Deving Sarasating Vyasang Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhatreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, text number 54. Andhavamishang Puranang Andhavamishang Puranang Nirvakpeshas Kritavubho Nirvakpeshas Kritavubho Akshanvatang Adipatis Akshanvatam Adipatis Tabhyang Yati Karoti Cha Tabhyang Yati Karoti Cha Andhavamishang Puranang Nirvakpeshas Kritavubho Akshanvatam Adipatis Tabhyam Yati Karoti Cha. Please. Puranam
Nirvakpesha Kritavubho Akshanvatam Adipatis Tabhyam Yati Karoti Cha Andhavamisham Puranam Nirvakpeshas Kritavubho Akshanvatam Adipatis Tabhyam Yati Karoti Cha.
Not the chase. One second. Andho, blind. Amisham, among those. Puranam, of the inhabitants. Nirvak, of the name Nirvak. Peshaskrito, of the name Peshaskrit. Ubho, both of them. Akshanvatam, of the people who possessed eyes. Adipatihi, ruler. Tabhyam, with both of them. Yati, used to go. Karoti, used to act. Cha, and. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Of the many inhabitants of this city, there are two persons named Nirvak and Peshaskrit. Although King Puranjana was the ruler of citizens who possessed eyes, he unfortunately used to associate with these blind men. Accompanied by them, he used to go here and there and perform various activities. Purport. This is a reference to the arms and legs of the living entity. The two legs do not speak, and they are blind. If a person simply trusts his legs to take him walking, he is likely to fall into a hole or bump into something. Thus, led by the blind legs, one's life may be placed in jeopardy. That's how you... Jeopardy. Of the senses that are working, the hands and legs are very important, but they have no eyes to see. This means that in the hands and legs there are no holes. In the head there are many holes, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears and 1 mouth. But lower down in the arms and legs there are no holes. Consequently, the arms and legs have been described as andha, blind. Although the living entity has many holes in his body, he nonetheless has to work with his hands and arms. Although the living entity is the master of many other senses, when he has to go somewhere, do something or touch something, he has to use his blind legs and hands. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Andha. Sorry, I was thinking of that. Timirandha. No, the Prabhupada said this word Andha is used here. Blind. We are blind by tamas Timirandhasya. Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Namo Bhishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayang Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitang Tvang Sajivam Sadvaitang Savadutang Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine. Hare Krishna, thank you for coming to class. When I was preparing or trying to prepare for the verse, I was a little bit asking myself, what should I say? Because apparently there is not much to speak on. That's what my mind was saying. And then I was thinking, on Sunday I was taking prasad with some Indian couple here. They came to the Tamil feast and they were very nice. They are not really initiated devotees, not even accepted Krishna consciousness fully yet, but they are from South India and quite pious. Grew up in a Hindu family worshipping Shiva, mainly Shiva, he said. And they got to know the devotee some time ago, and then he was I asked him if he knows Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he became quite enthusiastic and he said, yes, a friend of mine who is in ISKCON, he explained to me who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. And so he was telling me what he knows, and then he was saying, and you know, he told me this amazing story of Srila Prabhupada, how in America they called him to the court. Srila Prabhupada had to go to the court and they were accusing him that he's doing some propaganda work, and then Prabhupada was preaching heavily to them, and then the how you say, the judge was asking him, so you know, what's the authenticity of what you're doing? And then Prabhupada was saying, I have 18,000, I can give you 18,000 proofs. And he was somehow this devotee, not a devotee, but this man, he was very touched how Prabhupada was so bold. You know, he told me, I have 18,000 proofs and I can give them to you right now. And he said, and then the judge told him, okay, they accepted and they let him go. And I was thinking, what kind of story is he referring to? Because I know that Prabhupada told his devotees when they had to go to court, when they were accusing them of being a cult and doing some basically some unfavorable activities for the society. Then Prabhupada was saying, you take the books and then you present the books. You tell them, read the books, and then you will understand. I never heard the story like that, but we know over time that the stories usually become more, how you say? They become more opulent in a way, yeah. And more mystic and more all that, yeah. So yeah, I was thinking that it is 18,000 proofs, that's the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was thinking every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is a proof that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and we are His eternal servants. And sometimes I'm now speaking from myself, for the conditioned mind it's not so obvious to detect how this is the case. In this verse Krishna is not mentioned, and it's quite abstract. But then I also realized when we sit down, or when I sat down and I was reflecting a little bit about the words, then all of a sudden some realizations come. So Srimad Bhagavatam is establishing the supremacy of Krishna and the supremacy of bhakti and the supremacy of being a pure devotee of the Lord, full surrender. And Srimad Bhagavatam is doing that by telling different stories And these different stories are meant to purify the conditioned living entity. And one example came to my mind, like when you when you are sick and let's say you have a disease, and then you go to the doctor and he's gonna treat you. It's really important, because let's say the doctor takes out a knife and he will maybe cut open your skin in order to do some surgery. If you don't know why he's doing that, then it's going to be quite scary, or it's going to be confusing. So in the same way, it's probably sometimes good to know what is the disease we have and why is the doctor now doing that kind of surgery. Why is the Bhagavatam telling us this thing? And I want to ask you, what we are now in this Puranjana story, so what's your understanding? Why is this story being told to us? What's the goal? What's the goal of this surgery? How will it cure us?
Story of Puranjana.
We are now in the story of Puranjana.
Well, as far as I remember, the story was told to King, what's his name?
Prachina Barishat. Yeah.
In order to show him how he is engrossed in material life.
Yes.
And same thing applies to us.
Yes. Yeah. So Narada Muni is telling the story to King Prachina Barishat in order to show him how attached he is and absorbed in material life. Yamuna, you had something?
Yes, I wanted to say that, point out how important it is to control the senses, and that the illnesses that we are, as we said, so engaged in, like, enjoying.
So additionally, he's also telling us how to control our senses, and in this way get out of this entanglement of the material body. You had something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, that whole mentality of being controlled and
Bhavarogi, to cure the mentality of being the controller, being the enjoyer. Ishvaroham Mahambogi, the Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, that's what's happening, and Narada Muni, he's using this story of Puranjana, who lives in the city of 9 gates, in this way explaining to the spirit soul how we are the soul encaged in this material body. And in this verse we hear about the 2 persons named Nirvak and Peshaskrit, who are blind men. And in this way Prabhupada explains the 2 arms and the 2 legs are being described. And in the verse it is stated that by these friends, Puranjana, the spirit soul, is going here and there and performing various activities, karoti. And so that's what's happening, that the spirit soul in this material body is moving around by the help of the legs, and it's performing activities mainly with the help of the 2 arms and hands. And Prabhupada is elaborating a little bit on what Narada Muni is saying, that these persons are blind, they don't have eyes. And what I found to be, in a quite simple way, Prabhupada just explains, of the senses that are working, the hands and legs are very important, but they have no eyes to see. They have no eyes to see. One could say, yeah, it's, it's clear, the arms and legs, they don't have eyes. It's normal. But actually it's not normal. It's completely abnormal. Angani yasya sakalendri avritti manti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti ananda chimmaya sadujvala vigrahasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possess in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. We recite that verse every morning, or we at least hear it every morning. Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti. Angani means limbs. Sakala indriya. Sakala means all, and indriya means the senses. And vritti means functions, manti, possess. So Krishna's body is being described in the Brahma Samhita as a body which is not limited, but a body who is perfect, meaning every limb can perform the activity of any other limb. We know that sometimes when we try to explain to newcomers into Krishna consciousness what we are doing, then often we have to explain how we deal with food, and we tell them we offer the food. And so we have to explain to them how it's working, and then we tell them, God, He's not limited. He can accept the food with just looking with his eyes. And so in this way the food is still there, and we also get something. He doesn't have to take it with his mouth. And so probably all of us, we have sometimes explained in this way to others how God is functioning. And now the question is, does only God, Krishna, have such a body? Or what about the living entities, the jivas? They also have, huh? How would you explain it? Like we hear it spoken about Krishna, and at least personally I can't think of a verse which, for example, explains the same thing towards the jiva. Yeah.
That's why we have the same.
You have a verse you can quote in this regard?
Okay. I'm not good at remembering.
Yeah, I'm also not so good. Yeah.
I think you were referring to whether the material body has this.
No, jiva.
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 So the
Yeah.
spiritual body and the jiva.
Jiva in its essence, like the spirit soul. Actually, it's good you bring it up, because I wanted to talk about this, that we don't have it, obviously. Narada Muni is just explaining that the legs and arms, the legs and arms, they are blind. So that's true, and we have this kind of body. So one verse which comes to mind is Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Buddha. Like this, the Jiva is a eternal fragmental part of Krishna, and I don't know a verse, but Prabhupada is telling it again and again that the living entity is quantitatively same, qualitatively same, but quantitatively different. So meaning the same qualities are there. And so we can conclude that this Jiva also has a spiritual body which can perform all the functions with all the limbs, but not in the same quantity. It's more limited. But where is that form which can perform all these activities?
It's hidden.
It's hidden.
I mean, we have spiritual senses, but they are covered.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I understood it, and also from the lectures of Niranjan Swami. He was giving lectures in Brihad Bhagavatamrita,
Mm-hmm.
and then the part where he was explaining the spiritual world and
Mhm.
Vaikuntha's, and then he would say how whatever the person, and it's also in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever the person thinks of at the moment of death, it goes to that place, but also it means that whatever a person meditates on, it acquires this form.
Mm.
So this is like for instance, if you meditate on Krishna the cowherd boy, then you can have a spiritual form that is like a cowherd boy. Or if you meditate on gopis, especially Radharani, you can have a body of gopi. And then it's explained how there's Kurma and Matsya. So therefore, the similar bodies are like that, spiritual bodies in the spiritual world, because there are planets where Matsya presides or Kurma presides, and then for the pleasure of the Lord in those forms, they take these forms. And I think that's very, very beautiful, because everything that exists here in the material world also is a reflection of what is in the spiritual world. So I like how everything makes sense. But yeah, and I know that I cannot quote, but I know that Prabhupada said that we have spiritual senses which are covered.
Which are covered, yeah.
They need to be purified.
So they are covered by material senses, a material body, and we are accepting that because of our consciousness, which is projected on that. It reminded me in the Uddhava Gita, the Avanti Brahmana is giving, he's telling the story how he accepted some gurus in his life, and one guru is a certain insect. Yesterday we were speaking about insects. I forgot the name because I don't have any experience of that, but that insect, apparently it gets haunted by a wasp, maybe, and then the wasp kills that insect, and the insect, because of being so absorbed in that wasp, takes the form of that wasp. And so he's accepting that insect as a guru in order to make that point that where we meditate on, where our consciousness goes, that body we accept. It is described that the spirit soul is the size of a 10,000th part of the tip of a hair. No, that's in the scriptures. And I just remembered when I was reflecting about where is our spiritual body. Once His Holiness Bhakti Charmaj, he was making the point, why is it so small? It's there, the spirit soul is there, but why is it so small? Because we are not acting spiritually, so then it shrinks. So it's just a spark, and that spark emanates consciousness, and then in contact with the body, the soul is alive. But the body, who is usually fully manifested, is in a state of in a shrunken state. Yes.
I thought Bhagavad Gita says soul cannot be changed or shrunk. Right? No, you have to.
Yeah, good point. Well, I'm just repeating what I heard.
But it is true what you said, because in the spiritual world there are spiritual forms, so it's true that it evolves in a way. I don't know how, but it has to. because it gets a spiritual body. So there is some potency in this spiritual spark that makes it manifest in certain ways.
Yeah, right. I would like to try to explain also.
It's getting very.
By the consciousness is now conditioned by the material body, meaning the material elements, and meaning the body, and that's why it cannot manifest itself in its proper form. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was trying, that's why I needed a minute to find the verse. I was looking it up. Maybe Krishna Prabhu, you remember, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while instructing Rupa Goswami, I think, about the Bhakti Lata, he speaks about how it penetrates the coverings of the material universe. It's there some.
Yeah, it's not very well. Covered quotes it on Bhagavad Gita.
Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So you said that because the soul is qualitatively the same as Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
so then maybe we can also assume that because Krishna's body is non-different from him. Like, he's not like the soul within Krishna's body and then he dies. Like that. Krishna's body is non-different from him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same is the spiritual body of the soul is non-different from the soul.
The spiritual body is not different from the soul. Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. The spiritual body is the soul. It's not. Now it's a separate thing, and we try to get free.
And just as Krishna can take different forms,
So can us take.
And the soul can expand also sometimes. It can be like interest sometimes, and it can be the loka also. Depends on the kind of service it does. It's described in the scriptures.
Yes, and also the soul is transcendental, right? It can shrink and it isn't like less. And if in the Bhagavad Gita it says you cannot like change the soul, it could be big or small, but it's not less or more.
we can appear
Because
big or small.
yes, because it's transcendental. So maybe we can also.
Transcendental, yeah. I wanted to speak about that example Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving of the Bhakti Lata which grows and penetrates the coverings. I have a feeling that this helps to clarify a little bit that point of why. No, what was the question? How can the how to say, how is it possible that the spiritual body shrinks and changes in a way, even though apparently it should be unchangeable? So where are the spiritual senses? These kind of questions, where does it go? And this example seems to be so. It gives such a nice picture, no? How the Bhakti Lata is being planted in the heart, meaning the soul gets connected with Krishna. That's what it basically means. Bhakti means the soul gets connected with Krishna. And then that plant, by the process of devotional service, it grows and grows and grows. And then it is very clearly described how that plant penetrates to one layer after the other. In Bhagavatam, this is described that the universe, it's like an egg, and it has the different elements cover it layer on layer on layer. So starting with the cross, earth, then water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. And each one is how much bigger than the previous?
In the poster, there's no mind, intelligence.
It's not there. I was just thinking when I was saying it.
It says false ego and then Mahata.
Yeah. This also reminds me how Guru Maharaj, he was saying how it's a very important thing we should understand, that we will never give up our mind and intelligence. This we know when we speak of transmigration of the soul and reincarnation, we speak of leaving the body and taking a new body, and he was making the point, the soul leaves the gross body, it doesn't leave the subtle body. The subtle body is always with the soul, and it's actually transformed. That's what happens. But the material body is left, and then from that spirit, the subtle body which is purified, then the spiritual body can manifest itself. And so that's the process, like for us difficult to understand at this point, who are inside of these elements. Our consciousness is being stifled by these elements, but the process is by devotional service. The bhakti grows, and then that bhakti plant penetrates through all these elements and goes to Krishna. That's described here. As one waters the bhakti lata bija, the seed sprouts, and the creeper gradually grows to the point where it penetrates the walls of this universe and goes beyond the Viraja river, lying between the spiritual world and the material world. It attains Brahma Loka, the Brahman effulgence, and penetrating through that stratum, it reaches the spiritual sky and the spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan. Being situated in one's heart and being watered by Shravan Kirtan, the bhakti creeper grows more and more. In this way, it attains the shelter of the desire tree of the lotus feet of Krishna, who is eternally situated in the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan, in the topmost region of the spiritual sky. The creeper greatly expands in the Goloka Vrindavan planet, and there it produces the fruit of love for Krishna. Although remaining in the material world, the gardener regularly sprinkles the creeper with the water of hearing and chanting. So there is a reason why it's described in such a way, because it should explain to us how we get liberated through bhakti. By ultimately the bhakti connecting, the bhakti becoming so strong that it will reach Krishna personally. And even though a person apparently is in this world, he is actually with Krishna. How is that possible? Because bhakti, love, is so powerful that it connects you with Krishna, even though you are from a material point of view, you are separated. You are not separated anymore. And then the ultimate perfection is when that plant produces the fruit of love, prema, and then this prema is offered to Krishna personally, and that's the perfection of life. So yeah, that's a little bit what I thought we can speak on. That story in Bhagavatam tries to tell us that we are in a cage, in a prison. This body is like a prison, And even though for us it's normal that the legs, they are blind and the arms are blind and so many other things are being described, it is actually abnormal. And we should have a spirit, we should again manifest our spiritual body. And in the scriptures it's explained how it is done. It's done by bhakti, by cultivating bhakti. And in this regard I can also just say one thing which comes to my mind, how I was listening to these lectures of Guru Maharaj, and he was saying, we are now on the bodily material platform. And so we hear from the Vedas that we are a spirit soul. We have eternal relationship with Krishna. But the problem is that we have a body, and we identify with the body, and we want to be happy with the senses, and we perform all kinds of activities with the body. So how do we solve this problem? We use the body in service of Krishna. Okay.
Somehow we purify and our consciousness realizes our true position. That's how I understand it so far.
Yeah. That's what he was saying was, we have to act. We simply have to act like a spirit soul, and then it will again manifest. That's the way. By acting like that sadhana bhakti, you just, even though you maybe don't feel like and you don't realize what's happening really, but you do it, and by acting you're like a spirit soul, the spiritual senses will again, it will be spiritualized. The whole thing will become spiritualized. And I wanted to share that because it's again a simple point but very significant, that it's not possible that we think ourselves back to being a spirit soul, but we have to act ourselves back. And that is very individual. It depends on the propensities one has by using the body we got and engaging in service. And then the body becomes not a cage, it's not an impediment anymore, but it's actually an instrument to realize again who we are. So thank you for your attention. I'd like to end here. We have 2 minutes if somebody has a comment or a question. Krishna. Let's wait till Guru Nishta receives the message. Yes.
Получается, материальный мир – это тюрьма.
So it means the material world is a prison.
Yeah.
А тело – это камера.
And the body is a camera.
А жизнь – это режим содержания каждого.
And life is a regime solution.
Time is over, sorry. To learn English or German.
Maybe Guru Nishta can explain.
Вы можете объяснить режим содержания?
Режим содержания, допустим, слово «судьба» это означает суд.
тебе назначили судом в прошлой жизни твой режим содержания в тюрьме. Тебе назначили. Как ты себя вел, ты получил. Такие мозги, такие...
Приговор как переводится? Приговор.
Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande Haribol.
Damodar Prasad, I just remembered how in Chaitanya Charitamrita it's written that when a person receives an initiation, then it's considered that he has a spiritual body. There is a verse somewhere, I forgot where, I can find it, but that's also very interesting because Krishna considers him as equal to himself actually, and also it's somewhere written, I think in the purpose of Prabhupada says that it is considered that he has a spiritual body because he uses everything like in the service of Krishna. Right? It's interesting.
When it's said that when he receives initiation, that means he has a spiritual body.
Yeah, something like that. But I can find it so that I don't say something wrong.
Because your
But
initiation
it's
doesn't mean that you're engaged in it.
no, I'm just saying what is written, and it's quite interesting, like because we don't think that we have spiritual body, but it's written there. I'll find it.
First or second initiation?
I mean, at the beginning was all one initiation.
Yeah.
But it's not
Like the initiation is they really said, no, that the Guru is initiation is with a plan when our karma is spiritual body. And this is the topic I'm still trying to really mentally because written here, still there will be some karma, to purify you and all that.
interesting.
Guru needs to prove.
This I found.
Detention regime.
Life is prison. Life is
Тут нужно понять, как выйти с этой ситуации, в которую мы попали. Нужно это понять.
We have to understand how to get out of this situation.
What is the camera?
Камера — это тело.
Что это камера? Мир материи — это тюрьма. Что это камера? А жизнь — это режим твоего содержания.
Жизнь или карма, да? Карма. Жизнь, карма. The life
Ну,
is
можно как там.
detention regime.
А слово «судьба» — это суд. Это тебе судом говорили.
Ну, так не переводится.
Не, ну вообще, для них.
Destiny is the verdict of judgment. Not just court was court and was verdict and we have this
Режим надо только изменить.
detention
Свое
regime.
поведение.
We can change this detention regime by our acting properly.
First you get probation. When you behave well, you get probation.
Yeah.
You get that.
And then
You
you
get-
allow to get to free world.
Yes, like first and the people coming down and then take birth somewhere where Krishna performs his pastime. This is probation.
Есть испытательный срок, который на свободе, так сказать, говорится, что прежде чем преданные попадают на Галоху, они получают рождение в хорошем месте, ну, имеется в виду Вриндаван,
Also aus Wanderung.